There we go. So I'll start off by saying my name is Marco Cafiero. I'm the South Island coordinator for the Xpey Wellness team. My ancestry is I'm Anishinaabe on my mother's side and Chilean on my father's side, and I reside in Victoria, BC currently. And our Xpey Wellness team would like to begin by acknowledging and honoring the diverse Coast Salish nations that we work with on Vancouver Island and whose territory we reside in, including Hamalko, Klahoose, Qualicum, Snanawis, Snanemoch, Subaset, Halalt, Lyaxin, Penelakut, Cowichan tribes, Malahat, Shianu, Tsuk, Staminis, Esquimalt, Songhees, Sartlip, Pakochan, Sycam, and Sayot. Our team is a diverse group of people with roots and ancestries rooted in different nations and cultures. We would like to acknowledge that we show up in this work and within these communities as guests. And with that being said, I would like to pass it off to Jessica Barudin. Thank you.
Yo gelaka stopla, nugwa am putlas, nugwa am ananque, hetman ligami Jessica, Yuklin la Yalis, Gaikin la Namgis, to Hotwatmis, to Kwakwaka'wakw. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, Marco, and thank you to the Xpey Wellness team. My name is Jessica Barudin, and I am Kwakwaka'wakw from my mother's side. I'm a member of the Namgis First Nation, and I'm currently living in Alert Bay. I'm very happy to be on Kwakwaka'wakw territory today at Building Blocks and have a setup here for doing some yoga with you guys over the next hour and talking a little bit more about physical activity and yoga during pregnancy. To start, just wanted to say that I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my personal journey with motherhood, as well as some of my background and knowledge I've gained through formal education. I've trained to be a physical therapist from McGill University, as well as completed my undergrad at UBC in Human Kinetics. And I worked for some time as a personal trainer. And now I'm currently doing my doctoral research through Concordia University and working full-time with the First Nations Health Authority. And my role is traditional wellness specialist. So that covers all the nations across the island. And I'm so honored to be in this position to connect with all of our family groups, the Coast Salish, the Nuu-chah-nulth, and the Kwakwaka'wakw. And traditional wellness is a passion of mine. It's a way of life. It's a way of being, and has really grounded me in my work, in my life, and in my family. And it's an ongoing journey. So I'm also a yoga teacher and a member of the Kwakwaka'wakw Doula Collective, which we'll talk about a little bit as we move forward. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of what to expect over this next hour. Thank you for taking the time to tune in and listen and check out the recording. So we'll start with just a prayer, a grounding meditation, and some movement, which I think is good for everyone, not only if you're pregnant or in the postpartum phase for all of us, especially in this pandemic time. We're living a lot more sedentary of a lifestyle, so it's good to move our body. I'll share a little bit about my motherhood journey, talk a little bit about some traditional or ancestral wisdom for pregnancy and the postpartum phase, and speak a little bit about some of the physical activity recommendations that we have through Canadian exercise science guidelines, some contraindications just to be aware of, especially if you are currently pregnant and starting anew with exercise and yoga, just to keep in mind. We'll talk a little bit about pelvic floor and why that's important, and as well get into a little bit of the fourth trimester and beyond. And I'm hoping that we can share a bit of a movement practice together, so some gentle yoga. So wherever you are, just feel free to make yourself comfortable. If you have a yoga mat, great. If not, that's fine. You can do it from your office or from a chair. And if you're comfortable, you can sit on the ground on a blanket, whatever works for you. So I wanted to start with this beautiful image. And there's a quote that goes with it. I'm just trying to pull that up. Just a moment here. So with this image, it came from a woman named Katie from Spirit Soul. And I found this so beautiful. And I just invite you to take a seat wherever you are and connect with your body, taking some deep breaths in through your nose. And for those of you who may be listening to this who are currently pregnant or who have recently had a baby or have been a mother at some point in your life, I just invite you to recall that experience. They told you about the contractions, but did they tell you about the expansion? Did they tell you how your body would open to make way for the whole universe to pass through? Did they tell you how your heart would explode with love bigger than anything you've ever known as you pulled your baby to your chest? They told you about the ring of fire, but did they tell you about the crown of stars? Did they mention that there's a moment when your baby enters the world and you leave your body and touch the heavens and become the light of a million galaxies? Did they tell you how the pain of stretching to receive your child would be more exquisite than any sensation you felt? They told you you would scream, but did they tell you about how you would roar? Did they tell you about the power that you would rise up from your belly as you called your baby forth with your mighty voice? Did they tell you how you as breathing fire you would bleed? But did they tell you how that sacred blood wouldn't scare you? How you would feel grateful for that magical liquid of life as it trickled down your leg? How you
Uh,
I think I got kicked out of
hmm.
the
Seems frozen right now. Oh, hmm.
Marco. I think I got
You got kicked out? Okay.
audio.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you want to try logging back in with the other one?
Yeah, just in connecting.
Okay.
Bear with me. Just start from the third paragraph and just share it later.
Okay.
It's really beautiful, but okay, so they told you you would scream, but did they tell you about how you would roar? Did they tell you about the power that would rise up from your belly as you called your baby forth with that mighty voice? Did they tell you how you would embody the wild woman within you as breathing fire with your song? They told you you would bleed, but did they tell you how that sacred blood wouldn't scare you? How you would feel grateful for the magical liquid of life as it trickled down your leg? How you would honor its flow and how it would help you heal a lifetime of hating your body's bleeding cycle? They told you these stories and taught you to fear birth, to fear your power, to fear yourself. But you are stronger and wiser than that, Mama. You know that birth is your divine dance, your soul's song, your moment with God, and you walk fearlessly into her open arms. So let's go back to this. So just share from my perspective as a mother. I have two daughters. My daughter, the oldest, is Maya Sequoia, and my youngest is Leela Starlight. Currently, my oldest is 7 years old, and my youngest is 3. And in our culture, in Kwakwaka'wakw culture, we have a word, kwi'kwalay'u, and that roughly translates to my reason for being. And it says a lot about our value of how we value our children. And so these two little beings are definitely my reason for living. They have taught me a lot in the importance of living in a good way since I first knew about becoming pregnant. I had some very difficult experiences throughout my pregnancy, and this isn't uncommon for Native women. Um, with my oldest, I had been currently practicing as a student physical therapist, doing a sort of a practicum clinical placement there right in Manhattan. And it was a pretty crazy time in my life. I was 25 and just halfway through my master's program. And I had just found out my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in her stomach and her ovary. And so it was a profound time in my life of just finding out I was carrying life and experiencing this huge life transformation and transition. And at the same time, my mother was struggling with her own reproductive organs and the home where I originally came from. So that was really difficult for me when it sort of coincided her diagnosis and my pregnancy just within a couple of weeks. And that really shaped my journey of pregnancy and motherhood. And my youngest daughter, I was pregnant with her. I found out I was pregnant with her just 2 days after my husband and I we had our wedding ceremony that my mom was a part of, and she had prayed for more grandbabies, so it was like her prayer came true within a couple of days. And unfortunately, she passed while I was pregnant, at about 6 months pregnant. And that was profoundly difficult as well. Just that grief and loss and sadness during my pregnancy. And you might be wondering, how does this relate to our physical activity and yoga? And I just wanted to touch on that from our worldview of being Indigenous people, we don't compartmentalize our wellness. So our physical health is directly related to our emotional well-being, our mental health, as well as our spiritual health. So when we start looking at this experience holistically, we can start to appreciate that we can't just look at this how sometimes a Western lens does, as saying, physical activity recommendations are XYZ, for instance, and you have to follow it this way. We know that there's much deeper teachings throughout our pregnancy, and keeping that holistic worldview in mind is so important. And physical activity and wellness is key for any woman, any man, any child. This is something that we should really be embracing across our lifespan. We always did historically. Our ancestors were always very physically fit and active just with their daily life experience. And motherhood is definitely a journey. And for myself, I try to embody that and try to show a good example to my children of embracing activity as much as possible together as a family, as well as taking my time to exercise. And my kids will often see me working out at home or working out when we go in the park to play, or just taking walks together. So it's become a practice in our family to move together and to enjoy that activity and play all together. And so if we think about our ancestors, our ancestral wisdom, whichever nation you come from, that's your birthright. And it's a beautiful time right now that we're seeing our women, our families, our elders, everyone reclaiming that knowledge of birth work and taking care of ourselves through our life cycles. And pregnancy is one of the most profound and sacred times for a woman in her life. And I can share that for me, it definitely was. I learned so much, especially from other nations. When I was pregnant with both children, I was living in Montreal. And I learned a lot from Mohawk teachers, as well as Anishinaabe teachers, and some other elders I met over that way from different nations, a Lakota grandmother as well. And so what they shared with me, and what we know in our culture as well, is that when we are carrying a baby within our body, this is our most sacred and powerful time. That's when we are at our strongest with with our own medicine, in our own bodies, and that's because we're carrying two spirits within us. And if you're carrying more than one baby, then you have multiple spirits, and that's a very powerful thing. And women are sacred when we're having our moon time, our menstruation. That's a very powerful cleansing ceremony that we have. And so the only time that we're more powerful than when we are on our moon time is when we are pregnant with child. And so our ancestors always taught us, especially in the old days, to keep active, and that would promote a healthy pregnancy and make labor easier. Although I don't know how labor can get much easier. It's quite the experience. And it was always part of our daily life. So again, moving through pregnancy with that in mind, is of keeping that movement and physical activity to help sustain your pregnancy, help to give you strength. It really pays off in the long term. It pays off for your experience as your body grows and changes. And as we transition into that labor and birthing experience, that ceremony. And finally, when we move into the postpartum phase and actually have our children with us. And for many, this goes to say the same for when we have multiple children, to have that strength and that endurance, because we need it to take care of them. They're very high energy. And so this is a photo of with my grandmother. Her name's Laura Cook, and she had 12 babies in her lifetime. And this is her with her great granddaughter, my daughter Leela. And I wanted to share that because as we're pregnant, we're growing this beautiful baby within us. And within that, it's a sacred hoop. And what I mean by that is that as we're growing this baby, the embryo and the tissues that are growing within it are also developing their own reproductive cells within that. So if you think about that continuum of the importance of taking care of ourselves through pregnancy, it really lays a foundation for your grandchildren and also for your great grandchildren. So thinking about that continuum of life, of being life givers, and that beautiful privilege that we have, that beautiful gift of being a conduit from the spirit world to the physical realm. So just a reminder that it's not just about our own physical health, it's really for that lifeline of ours to keep strong and healthy. And there are many guidelines and suggestions that promote. There's a lot of research that the benefit activity throughout after is to have a cumulative of 150 minutes of moderate physical activity. So if you look here, on one continuum of being sedentary, the most sedentary is being asleep, and then moving along this arrow here for moderate physical activity to intense exercise. And so typically during pregnancy, we're not going past anything moderate to intense. When we are pregnant, we want to maintain our fitness. We want to keep some movement to promote circulation, but we're not looking to lose weight or to gain muscle or to have any robust physical fitness goals. We're really just looking to nurture ourselves and to support movement of our blood, movement of oxygen into our tissues. And I'll speak a little bit more about rest and how that's important. So just some general guidelines, 115 minutes, and they say to spread that over 3 days, but promoting that you can include activity every day of the week. There are obviously some contraindications. So here's a list, and I just encourage you to make sure to speak with your midwife and your doctor if you have any concerns during your pregnancy. There's definitely Sometimes we have to be very mindful of our current health conditions, if we do have any, and any limitations we might have. So really following the guidance of your healthcare provider. If they advise you to be very careful with exercise, then take that into consideration, especially if you have any type 1 diabetes or any cardiovascular or respiratory challenges. Just keep that in mind. I wanted to share briefly about pelvic floor. So this is something that I've learned through having my children and through my education, that the health of our pelvic floor is incredibly important. And you might be wondering, well, what is the pelvic floor? I've got a couple of images to share over the next 2 slides here. So essentially the pelvic floor is the muscles, the connective tissues, and the layers that we have in our pelvis. And they support all of our organs in our pelvis. And so they contract, and they're essentially contracted at all times to help to maintain the integrity of our body. They've got many, those muscles and connective tissues and ligaments have a lot of important function within our body. So for one, supporting our pelvic organs, controlling our bladder and bowel functions, passing of urine and feces. It's important for our sexual function. It's also a key to our breathing. So when we breathe, our pelvic floor engages as well with our diaphragm. And so when we breathe deeply, this is really important to have a sense of your pelvic floor muscles. And we're going to practice this a little bit with some of the movement practice. And again, finally, the pelvic floor is tremendously important through pregnancy and childbirth. So here's an image to get a sense of what this looks like. So obviously we can see here is a growing baby inside the uterus. And this is our spinal column, the sacrum here. Oops, go back one. And in the back here, we see this is our rectum and our bowels here. And the vagina and bladder. So as the baby grows, there's more pressure that's growing on the bladder. And that's why we have to pee more often. And as you can see, the lines here, this is to represent the different tissues, the muscles, connective tissue, and ligaments that support the pelvic floor. It's kind of like a hammock. And so as the baby grows, more and more pressure bears down on those tissues. So before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy, and again throughout our lifespan, we want to maintain the integrity of these tissues. And we can do that by several different exercises of engaging and looking at the coordination of those muscles, looking at how to strengthen and improve the endurance of those muscles, as well as helping us to control kicking those muscles into gear when we have, for instance, a sneeze or a cough, or when we laugh really hard. It's really important to control those muscles. And for the most part, we do this unconsciously. Our body is very intelligent, but we can train this using our awareness and conscious efforts. So again, this is just an image of the different layers. You can see there's a lot of different muscles and tissues that surround the area of our pelvis, around our urethra, our vagina, our anus, and just overall to support that integrity of our pelvic floor. And so some of you might have heard of Kegels. So Kegels or pelvic floor muscular exercises. These are just something that we can practice, and you can practice this at any time of the day. You can practice this while you're sitting in your car, while you're at your workplace or at home. If you have your baby, then you can practice this while breastfeeding. It's just a good practice to do. You can do this multiple times a day. This is one technique to share. Again, like I mentioned, we essentially have 2 types of fibers, muscle fibers. There's the slow twitch, which is more of the endurance, which I mentioned the pelvic floor is engaged all the time to keep the integrity of our pelvis through breathing and through supporting our tissues. And also the fast twitch fibers, which kick in when we sneeze or cough or laugh. And so we'll go through this. I'll get you to just take a seat, and wherever you are, sitting nice and tall. And the cue that I've learned is to imagine within your pelvic floor that you have a blueberry sort of at the opening of your vagina. And you're going to imagine that as you contract the muscles. Another cue is that some people like to share that you're holding in your pee a midstream. And so we're looking to kind of engage those muscles. So even from our belly button to our vagina, imagining that there's a string, a line there, and you're pulling in the muscles as well as drawing upwards. So taking a moment to just become aware of the different muscles and how they feel lifting upwards with a contraction, and then also releasing the contraction. So that's an important piece, is also finding that relaxation. So again, we'll just take a deep breath in. And now imagine contracting, pulling that blueberry inwards and upwards, holding, and then gently releasing. And you can repeat that up to 10 times and repeat that throughout the day multiple times. And we're working on strength and endurance there. So we'll take a pause here to do a few movements. Just want to double check the time. So we'll take a pause here to just do some gentle stretches. I'll invite you to find a comfortable seat. Again, if you're sitting on a yoga mat, or if you have any props, feel free to get those. And we'll start here. We're going to keep it pretty simple, and just being mindful of different folks' abilities, and whether you're pregnant or not, you're welcome to try this practice. So I like to come, and I'm just sitting on a bolster here, and you can sit on a blanket if you like. For me, it helps, especially if you're feeling a bit tight in your hips, finding a comfortable cross-legged position. And we're just going to start here doing some gentle movements. Before we get moving, I just invite you to find a comfortable seat of your choice. And if it feels good for you to close your eyes, I'll invite you to close your eyes or look gently downwards. I'm going to start by taking a few deep breaths in through our nose. And as you breathe in through your nose, start to feel an expansion in your belly. And we're really going to focus on softening up the tissues around our belly. So if it helps, you can bring both hands to your belly and try to soften the muscles. And if you can take a deep breath in, imagine filling up your hands with breath so you can feel your belly expanding with every breath. Inhaling, you should feel your belly moving and filling up your hands. And as you exhale, bringing your belly button towards your spine. And if you are pregnant or working with any pregnant clients or have any family members, this is a really good practice to do every day, is just connecting with your belly, connecting with your baby, with your womb. And you can start to communicate with your baby through this breath. You can speak softly or just in your own mind and start to build a relationship with your baby. If that's sometimes challenging to do, just invite you to imagine that there's a growing or bright light in your hands, in your womb. And just imagine that light. Imagine the color of that light expanding with every breath. Keeping your spine nice and tall, releasing your hands. We're going to inhale Lifting our arms up towards the sky, bringing our hands together, and exhale, pulling our hands to your heart center. Do that 3 more times. So moving our arms with our breath. Inhaling, looking up towards the sky. And exhaling, pulling your hands down to your heart center. Again, inhaling, lifting up. Exhaling, bringing your hands back down to your heart. And last one, inviting a nice, deep, big breath in. And exhale, hands back down to your heart. Bringing your hands to your knees. We're just going to start inviting some gentle movements in our spine. So I'll invite you to inhale, lifting your chin up towards the sky, lifting your chest, opening up your shoulders and your collarbone, and exhale, rounding your chin in towards your chest and looking towards your belly. Just rounding the upper spine. It can be very small, gentle movements. So I always encourage people to start off small and work their way, depending on how your body's feeling today, depending on how you slept, or if you have any injuries, just taking it easy, moving with your breath. 2 more at your own pace. And I'm just hearing all these cracks in my body, so opening up and being gentle with your joints and with your tissues. And when you're ready, just coming back to center. Bringing your right hand over to the floor, or keeping it on a block if you like. If you have a yoga block, that's great, or books work as well. And this just helps to create some space. So we'll just put that block on the side underneath your right hand. And inhale your left arm up towards the sky, looking upwards, taking a nice deep breath in. That checks out in your body okay, feel free to start to lean over towards the right. So you're bringing your left fingers over towards your left ear, framing your beautiful face and opening up. You should feel an opening sensation on the left side of your rib cage. Taking a deep breath in. And wherever you are, if you could just open up your left shoulder, opening up your collarbones, trying to soften the face, soften the jaw. And exhale, coming back to the center, releasing your left hand down. Maybe if you're using a block, moving your block over to the other side. We're going to inhale up our right fingertips towards the sky. If that checks out for you here and you're feeling a stretch, great. And if you did so on the other side, and if it feels good, feel free to lean over. Opening up your chest towards the sky, we'll take a nice deep breath in through our nose. And again, feeling that opening sensation in the side of our body. This feels really good, especially as your belly is growing. Helps to create some space for your lungs as the baby puts some more pressure around our organs. Gently release your hands down. From here, we're going to take a gentle twist. So typically in pregnancy, we're going to avoid anything that's going to compress the baby. It's going to compress the uterus. So we don't want to do any deep twisting, but for a rule of practice, you listen to your own body and what feels good for you. So I like to take my left hand just to support my spine, and that I'm moving from my upper body, from my shoulders, and basically we're twisting from the bra line or our thoracic spine. So it can be very subtle. We can take a gentle twist here and look towards the direction that we're twisting. It doesn't have to be very deep at all. Just wherever you are, taking a nice deep breath in. And if it checks out, you can turn a little bit more. Again, just focusing on twisting from your upper spine, not compressing the baby at all. And exhale, coming back to center, and we'll take a twist over to the right side. So I like to bring my right hand to support me and prop myself up behind me and start to twist over to the right. Taking a nice gentle twist. breathing deeply through our nose. If it feels good in your body, going a little bit deeper and exhaling, coming back to center. So from here, we're going to find our way onto hands and knees. I'm going to face this way. So if this feels comfortable for you, or if you just want to check out what I'm doing, that's fine too. We're going to come onto our hands and knees, and typically this is really safe position for pregnant women, and it's also a good position to start practicing getting comfortable as we move into and prepare for labor. Women actually do like to birth in this position. So the more we familiarize ourselves feeling our body, feeling relaxation in this in different poses, it helps us prepare for labor. So we're here, we're just gonna breathe deeply into our back body. So breathing into your lower ribs and also allowing your belly to just be soft and relaxed. From here, I'll invite you to invite some gentle movements. So we're gonna rock our pelvis a little bit, lifting our chin and our chest, opening our collarbones, and exhaling, rounding, curling in our chin towards our chest. This is called cat-cow. And we're just taking in nice deep breaths, rounding the upper spine and moving really gently and slowly. And this is a great movement to do throughout your pregnancy and postpartum. It's a great movement to do in general if it feels good in your body. And just moving with your breath, exploring that back and forth, feeling your pelvis rock forward and back. If it feels good, you might want to start to move side to side and feel your pelvis in different directions, wagging, for instance, or moving in a non-linear way. This kind of helps to just open up your body. And when you're ready, we're going to just take a moment here, taking our big toes to touch. Take your knees as wide as the mat if you like. And we'll take a child's pose. So there's a couple options here. You can either take classic sort of child's pose where we're actually going to have wide knees to accommodate if we have a growing baby in our belly. You can stack your hands and rest your forehead on your palms, or sometimes I like to stack my fists, and this just helps to keep the torso somewhat upright. This might not always feel good for pregnant moms who have a lot of nausea. So just again, checking out how that feels in your body and really allowing your belly to soften and to feel expansive. You shouldn't have any compression in your belly here. And when you're ready, coming back up and just sitting on your knees if this feels comfortable for you. You can also sit on a block. We're just going to take a couple of breaths here, engaging our pelvic floor. So I like to sit on my knees and from here, finding a nice tall spine. Taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And we'll just practice engaging those pelvic floor muscles again. So imagining that blueberry just at the opening of your vagina and imagining a sensation of pulling inwards and upwards. So however that feels in your body, just familiarizing yourself and becoming aware of the tissues. We're going to see pulling that in for 2 seconds and releasing slowly for 2. Taking a pause here, repeating that, holding in and pulling it upwards for 2, 1, and releasing. Taking another breath. We'll repeat that one more time. Inhaling, drawing your pelvic floor upwards and inwards. And releasing slowly. Just taking a breath here. We'll do one more technique, which I mentioned. There's 2 types of fibers, the fast twitch and the slow twitch. So the fast twitch ones that we're going to practice next with our engagement is to support us when we sneeze or cough or laugh, and just helping us so we don't have any urinary incontinence or any leaking during pregnancy or after pregnancy. This is also really helpful for anyone as we get older. It's really good to strengthen our muscles. So over the next 10 seconds, and just invite you to engage the muscles and as quickly as you can, contract, release, contract, release, contract, release for the next 5 seconds. And keep your breath moving, engaging the muscles, and relax. So that one is always helpful to do, and to repeat that throughout the day. And again, just familiarizing yourself. There's a lot of great pelvic floor exercises to ask your midwife or physician about, and looking up and doing your own research there. So we're going to come up back to our knees and just take a few deep breaths. So I invite you to stand up on your knees and inhale, circle your arms up to the sky. Exhale, bringing your hands through your midline and gently bow your head. You might take your knees a little bit wider if you have a bigger belly. Rounding your spine up, rolling up, circling your arms up nice and high, and exhaling, releasing your hands to your heart and coming back down. Just one more, rolling our spine up. And exhale, releasing our hands. Bring your hands back down to all fours. If it feels comfortable in your body, we're going to take our left foot and bring it on the outside of our right hand. So this is a really good way to open up our pelvis. And just from here, you can stay kneeling. If it's uncomfortable for any reason, I invite you to just grab just a pillow or a blanket. You can tuck it under your knees there. And we're just working on opening our pelvis. If you're good here, stay here. If you'd like to come upright, you can come kneeling. And we want to just bring our pelvis opening a little bit here. If you have any instability, if you're feeling a little bit rocky, feel free to open up your stance a little bit more. You can also stay close to a wall and hold on to a wall. And you should just feel an opening in the front of your thigh, in the front of your right thigh. And just taking a deep breath in. You can keep your hands on your hips if you like. Breathing in again to your lower belly. Take a nice deep inhale. If it feels good in your body, reaching up. And exhale, bring your arms out nice and wide, opening our upper chest. And exhale, releasing. Bring your hands back down to the earth. Being mindful if you do have a big belly to slowly bringing yourself back to all fours. We'll take the same thing on the other side. So inhale, we're going to bring our right foot out towards the right and slowly work your right foot in towards your right hand. And if that checks out here, great. Stay wherever you're comfortable. If you like, you can also use blocks to help you to find that space. You can also come back up and open up your hip a little bit more. Wherever you are, just feeling that connection to your hips, feeling an opening in the left part of your upper left thigh, and expanding, opening up your lower belly and breathing into your lower belly here. If that checks out, you can take a nice deep breath in. Breathing, looking up, and exhaling, opening up your arms to the side. Bringing your arms back down to the earth. Typically, you can come back into child's pose and take a moment here. You can also finish by making sure that you have some time to rest. I'll just show you quickly how I like to close my practice. There's obviously a lot more poses we could be doing, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you a couple of safe ways to end your practice. So obviously you can close in meditation. You can also, if you are comfortable lying on your back, Sometimes this is contraindicated depending on your own comfort. I know I was able to lay on my back safely and comfortably, but otherwise sometimes we have some symptoms of compression. So if we have a baby, if you can imagine I have a baby in my belly, the baby would compress on my inferior vena cava, which is an important vessel in our body that brings blood back to our heart from our legs. So we might feel some breathlessness, some dizziness, or maybe nausea. So if you experience any symptoms being a pregnant woman, then please move to lie on your left side. Otherwise, I like to keep my legs over a bolster. You can use a chair, or you can also bring the soles of your feet together and kind of opening up your pelvis. And finally, if you do have any symptoms or if your belly is quite big, what you can do is lay over onto one side, hugging in the bolster, and just allowing for some space here on the side of your body. And it's really important that we take some time to rest and stay there for as long as you like. These are some safe ways of closing up your yoga practice. So I'm just going to come back to the slideshow and share with you a couple of things. Okay, see how that's going. There's obviously so much more we could get into about prenatal and postnatal yoga. Typically, rule of thumb is that if you are a pregnant woman or working with a pregnant client, we have sort of two categories. If you're sedentary or if you're not exercising very much, then we'd be very careful in prescribing any yoga poses or yoga practice, and encouraging women to opt for prenatal yoga, or practicing with someone who is trained to work with pregnant women. So that's one thing. If you are experienced practicing yoga, then you can typically stick with your same practice. Again, just being mindful of some things, not wanting to have any pressure on your growing belly, not having any pressure on the baby, causing any discomfort. And then again, just working with any symptoms you might be experiencing through pregnancy. So oftentimes we feel nausea through different trimesters, and it's important just to work with where you're at and where your body's at. And that to say as well, during my second pregnancy, I couldn't practice yoga at all. I couldn't really do any physical activity. So it's really dependent on your symptoms, your body. I had a lot of round ligament pain and pelvic pain, that it hurt to sit, it hurt to stand and walk. So I had to wear a pregnancy belt. So really any yoga poses were contraindicated from my midwife. She said that because all of the ligaments were really loosening up from all the pregnancy hormones, there's a lot of instability and a lot of pain. So I wasn't able to practice, and I had to really cut back on walking. So just being mindful of what's working in your body, and this is a time to connect and to really become self-aware of your growing and changing body. And there's no right or wrong way for anyone, just really feeling connected to what your body needs. And for the most part, our body really needs to rest. So as much as physical activity is great, maintaining exercise is great, walking is usually very accessible. Sometimes we just need to take it easy because we are growing life, we are doing our best, and especially for having a pregnancy right now during COVID times, there's a lot of extra stress and strain on us, starting a family or growing our families, amongst other things. So we talked about holistic wellness and not compartmentalizing things. So not being too hard on ourselves if we're not sticking to a routine or a regimen. really just being gentle. You're growing life, or you're someone in your family and community. So just encouraging yourself. So I wanted to just share, often overlooked is the fourth trimester. And this is really a key time for ourselves as new moms, or again, if we've had more than one baby, setting the foundation for what our body needs, and resting. So not getting into anything overwhelming, exerting ourselves too quickly, especially right after we've had our baby. It's really important that we take the time to allow our organs just to come back and settle into its places, and allow our uterus to really come back to its normal size. And typically they say, it takes about 6 weeks, likely a lot longer, to heal up from birth, depending on what kind of birthing experience you've had, likely longer if you've had any cesarean or tearing or any issues during the birthing process. So really being gentle, focusing on nourishing yourself, and resting. And especially in this fourth trimester, if you are breastfeeding or if you're just holding your baby all the time, I really encourage you to do some shoulder circles, neck stretches, and working on opening up and just relieving any stress that you might have. If you do have support and access to any body work, osteopaths or massage therapists, or if you like chiropractic or physical therapy, that's helpful. And I also encourage, if you do have access to a pelvic floor physio, that is a great service to access, and to find out if you're eligible for any supports from your midwife or doctor to see a pelvic floor physio. And it's really everything for our pregnant clients, our pregnant brother, or our pregnant family members. We want to make sure that we're supporting them along the continuum. And this includes in the fourth trimester and beyond that. Motherhood is really exhausting. It's tiring. We're often sleep deprived. We're putting our needs after our babies. So every community member has a role in supporting a new mom, whether it's her first child or her fifth child. We're always looking to nurture the life givers in our communities. So just encourage you to find out what that means for you, and especially what that means during the pandemic. It might just mean picking up the phone and checking in, or having a FaceTime, or sending over some food, but taking care of ourselves. I'm going to leave it at that. There's so much more we could talk about postpartum, and pregnancy, movement, and yoga. But I encourage you to contact me. This is my email, jessica.barudin@fnha.ca. So if you have any interesting ideas or stories, or any projects you're working on in community, I'd love to hear about it, and anything relating to traditional wellness, please feel free to get in touch. So thank you, Gilakasla, Haichka. Really appreciate your time, and thank you, Marco, for having me.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much, Jessica. On behalf of the Xpey Wellness team, I just want to say thank you very much for that awesome presentation. Thank you thank you to everyone that joined the webinar today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us or contact Jessica directly. Thank you very much. And I will stop the recording now.